I will try to be relatively brief in order to give more time to the other participants in the symposium, because their input is much more valuable than anything I can contribute. But allow me to say a few words about the symposium. I hope that you can all see my screen. How did the idea to organize this symposium first come about? We are members of the National Council for Child Protection in Bulgaria, have been in the last 4 years. And this topic is also related to what our foundation does in the area of AAC. And we always asked ourselves what happens to children who are unable to talk, who are unable to use any AAC system. There are studies showing that people with disabilities are 4 to 5 are at a much higher risk, 4 to 5 times more vulnerable to violence. This is a very serious problem, and we were extremely excited by Professor Bornman and Neta Ben-Zev in our conference several years ago, when they first spoke about a host of issues and about the systems put in place in Israel and in South Africa. They are the authors, co-authors and editors of a very important book on the prevention of violence in people with communication disabilities. And this year we finally saw a possibility, when discussing the plan on prevention of violence against children, for us to put this topic on the agenda. I mean, children with communication difficulties, and propose a number of measures that we hope are going to change the situation in Bulgaria, because the law does not say anything in this regard. What has kept us going forward has been an highly enthusiastic presentation we heard from Professor Bornman and from Neta Ben-Zev, as well as others, and which led to the invitation and sharing our excitement that we have taken the first steps in Bulgaria. We are convinced that this was a chance that we should act upon. Of course, we had much higher expectations and have lost some optimism in the process, but allow me to give you a brief introduction. In other words, this symposium is one of the steps, one of the crucial steps at the very beginning of what we know is going to be a long process in Bulgaria, and it's an opportunity to exchange good practices, experience. What are the main issues, the main problems from the point of view of the broader audience? People with communicative disorders are not always able to report violence if they're not properly trained to use AAC, a system which allows them to be heard in specific settings. They probably sometimes they may not have the concepts which allow them to understand that they have been the victims of violence. They may not be aware of the rights they have. They may not know whom they can report something that has happened. So there are many areas in which we should expand our efforts. The environment may not be conducive, may not be favorable to reporting acts of violence. Of course, in the best case scenario, of course, we prevent violence from happening in the first place. So by providing AAC training and tools from a very early age, allow us to briefly introduce the proposals that we have included in the plan on combating violence against children, which has now been adopted by the National Child Protection Council. The plan has not been made operational yet, but it will be. Its strategic aim is to ensure effective protection from violence and harmful influence, and in terms of an operational goal, ensure the right of children to protection in cases of violence. We imagined that this symposium would take place at a much later stage in the project, but now we see it as a first step, and these are several of the steps we have outlined. Organize a meeting with representatives of the relevant stakeholders at ministerial level, drawing up a report on violence against children with disabilities, also compiling statistics from other countries and presenting it in Bulgaria in terms of number of children with disabilities, and also looking at the entire process of reporting and addressing cases of violence. We have then planned to organize a round table with the participation of all stakeholders in order to present the results of the report and discuss the steps to take, specific steps to take in order to ensure effective protection. As a non-governmental organization, one of our main goals, of course, is to engage, to involve the main institutions. The Social Assistance Agency is a co-organizer of this symposium, but there are, of course, other organizations and ministries. The Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Ministry of Justice, but equally but also ministries that have specific responsibilities, such as the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education and Science, and the Ministry of Labour and Social Policy. So we are very glad to have representatives of these ministries here with us. We are also hoping to set up a system, to develop a system for registration, monitoring and assistance for children with complex communicative needs. A system that includes work for the development of the necessary communicative and social competencies, and that allow that create conditions for the prevention of violence and training of the relevant professionals. At the initial stages of cooperation with Mr. Bormann, we have translated some materials, but we have not yet had the possibility to use them in practice. We should also think of developing the necessary legislation which regulates the role and the qualifications of mediators, trained specialists at the level of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the Ministry of Justice, who are capable of supporting children with complex communicative needs throughout this process, and of course looking at literature and the issues raised in many publications. We need specific trained professionals in the judiciary who are capable, who are well versed in the specifics of the work of children with complex communicative needs. We also need to put in place a system that ensures the right to communication and training of children with complex communicative needs through an early assessment of needs of AAC and the selection of an appropriate AAC system and its provision free of charge, which will also play a role and improve prevention. So this is what I wanted to share by way of introduction. I would also like to thank the participants in the symposium. We've always been grateful, and we can feel the incredible spirit in the AAC community, and would like to thank in advance everybody who is going to so generously share their experience so that we can better prevent risks. Unfortunately, statistics show that these risks are higher. So it'll be very, very interesting for me to listen to all the participants, and also special thanks to Professor Boardman and Neta Benzev for their contributions. I hope that we will have an active participation from the representatives of ministries. I would like to thank specifically Mrs. Camelia Ivanova from the Social Assistance Agency, who has been instrumental in ensuring that we can include our proposals and recommendations in the plan, and has been an active participant at the level of the council.